Welcome to our weekly edition of Australian Immigration News, proudly brought to you by Australian Immigration Law Services, located in the heart of Sydney. On this show, we don't just parrot the news events, for any AI program can do that. We give insights and editorial based upon our vast 25 years of experience of lodging tens of thousands of visa applications for our clients. So, will there be any 189 invitation rounds this year? Will the states and territories get their usual allocations next financial year? Where do the visas fit into these planning level numbers? Well, that's a good set of questions, so stay tuned for these topics and more. Since there has been a slowdown on the invitation rounds and indeed even the number of visas granted these days, people are understandably confused about the inconsistency of the migration program. When you look at the information regarding how the planning levels work, well, it's just not there. And let me tell you, we have the same questions at the office, since there is a lack of transparency by the government about what is happening with the visa backlogs and grants. And to make this even more secretive than before, the Immigration Department is now charging considerable amounts of money for every single Freedom of Information request. It would appear that there is a concerted effort to keep the information from the public. The figures relating to visa backlogs are hidden from us as well, and as you heard last week, the Minister told the public
the visa backlog is down.
In the interview, the Minister produced figures for temporary visa processing only, but carefully stays away from the permanent residency numbers. To top this off, the global processing times have not been updated for nearly 3 months now. It's as if they don't want us to know what's really going on. Even though the department publishes its planning levels, there is no explanation on the department's website that details where the skilled migration visas fit into each category. However, finally we found it tucked away in the Parliament House archives, and we can share this with you now. You can see the current planning levels on the screen for this financial year. And remember, all these numbers refer to permanent residency applications and include primary and secondary visa applicants. Let's go through each one in the skilled migration section. The employer-sponsored category, the relevant visa is the subclass 186. In the skilled independent category, the relevant subclass is the 189. In the regional category, relevant visa subclasses include the 494 visa, the 491 visa, the 887 visa, and the 187 visa. Remember, the 187 visa is still open to those who have eligible temporary skilled visas and are transitioning to permanent residency. Now, the 494 and 491 visas are included in these figures, for even though they are temporary visas, they are provisional permanent residency visas, and they have access to PR via the 191 pathway. Therefore, the 191 visa grants are not included in the planning level figures. And that's actually a good thing, for it means they can be processed and granted quickly without being slowed down with worries of exceeding the planning levels. The state territory nominated category. The relevant visa subclass is the skilled nominated 190 visa. Each state or territory determines its own criteria for nomination and is allocated a certain number of places each year. The 491 visa works mostly in the same manner except for the Australian sponsored stream. The Business Innovation and Investment Program relevant visas are the subclass 888 and 188. Since there are no 188 visas possible this year, all the 500 places will go towards clearing the 888 PR visa backlog. The Global Talent Visa Program uses the Global Talent Visa subclass 858, which has 2 streams. Now, looking back at old Freedom of Information logs, we can see that by the end of February 2023, they had 31,499 189 visa applications on hand. This figure includes primary and secondary applicants. Given that another big round of invitations happened in May 2023, where 7,355 were given out, this means it is very possible the department had at the end of June 2023 about 40 to 50,000 applications still on hand. Another factor to consider is that the 189 New Zealand stream had approximately 10,000 applications sitting there going nowhere, since the department knew they would have a direct pathway to citizenship coming up soon, and we will talk more about them a little later. So we are assuming that if you take out the Dead in the Water New Zealand applications, perhaps being conservative, you already have about 30,000 189 applicants sitting there at the beginning of this financial year waiting for their visas to be granted. So it seems they are delaying giving 189 invitations, for they are looking to fill the current planning numbers with all those applications yet to be finalised. If they are trying to get back to faster processing times, then they will need to grant those visa backlog files first to fit them in this financial year, and then issue new invitations maybe early next year and be in a position to give them a fast decision from July 2024. If the Immigration Department had bothered to look at their own data here, you can see that the on-hand applications for the 491 and 190 visas for primary applicants alone was about 13,500 for each. We know with secondary applicants as well, the average rises another 50%. So by the end of April 2023, they already had on hand nearly enough applicants to fill the next financial year, and they were still handing out invitations like candy bars. Unfortunately, those who are waiting for invitations for this year are affected by the gorging and greed of the current government to try and grab as many skilled applicants as possible. It is certainly not a sustainable way to run the migration program and has caused a lot of collateral damage to many visa hopefuls. Speaking of collateral damage, the ABC article this week covered the issue of how the outer regional stream of the South Australian Government sponsorship program was axed without notice. This has left businesses in regional South Australia and hopeful visa applicants in precarious positions. One of those who have suffered from this was Sam Rasad, who expressed his frustration in the comments section. Yes, Carl, in South Australia they have the outer regional stream. They said in a webinar that no change to this stream. People come here to work in the outer regional South Australia and then suddenly they remove the stream. I also completed my 6 months requirement and now all that time is wasted and they say no more allocation. Like what the hell with Australian immigration system? It's so much frustrating, mentally exhausting. Yes, Sam Rasad, you're absolutely right, and we have full compassion about how you must be feeling right now. However, further in this ABC article, the South Australian Government says it will possibly reintroduce the outer regional stream for sponsorship when the allocation of quotas get back to normal figures. The article quotes the South Australian Government as saying, if the situation changes next year and we have more places allocated, then absolutely we'd look to reintroduce that. Is it worth people remaining in South Australia in the hope that this stream will be reintroduced? That is impossible to advise, but those who do choose to stay, we wish you the best of luck that they open the stream again next financial year. Despite the mess of backlogs in the permanent migration program, the Immigration Minister seemed very happy with himself, announcing that over 30,000 Kiwis have signed up for the Australian citizenship in just 100 days since applications opened on the 1st of July. He has also focused on the good news that the government processing times for citizenship applications have been dramatically reduced. He said this in his press release. Thanks to the government's 50% reduction in citizenship processing times, we're able to get people from application to ceremony quicker, to make it fairer for so many that have been living and working in our local communities for so long. I would like to congratulate the 30,000 New Zealanders for their ongoing commitment to being part of our diverse multicultural country. I look forward to celebrating with you at the citizenship ceremony soon. And I'm sure he is particularly glad that most of those New Zealanders who are waiting in the 189 visa backlog no doubt have also applied for their Australian citizenship. This means that once the citizenship is granted, the 189 application is over and would have to be withdrawn. So as far as we know, the department is not giving refunds to those who applied for the 189 New Zealander stream, which seems particularly unfair and unjust. At least the 189 invitation rounds began for Victoria this week. If you didn't get an invitation by email by now, it means that you have missed out on that round. As far as we know, New South Wales is yet to issue any invitations. And another media release from the Immigration Minister this week as he announced that the Pacific Engagement Visa is finally on track with legislation passed to get the program up and running. The Pacific Engagement Visa will enable up to 3,000 nationals of Pacific Island countries and Timor-Leste to migrate to Australia as permanent residents each year. The minister said, legislation passed by the Senate today will enable a pre-application ballot to be used randomly to select applicants for the Pacific Engagement Visa program. If successful in the ballot, applicants would then be required to satisfy criteria including having a job offer in Australia. Obviously, those who are entering the ballot will not have job offers lined up, but there is no details about when your name is pulled out of the hat, how long you will have to secure that job. It seems to me that if you're sitting in a village in the middle of the highlands on a Pacific island and you've never been to Australia, how realistic is it that you're going to be able to secure a job? The government says it's going to provide support according to an information fact sheet, but still I have doubts about how vulnerable these desperate job seekers are going to be, because if they don't get this job offer, there will be no visa. We do not want corrupt parties entering into this process, forcing people to pay for job offers because they are under pressure to produce one. An interesting aspect of this new bill passed this week was the involvement of the Greens Party to get it through. According to an SBS article, it seems they did so only if the government was in turn going to reform the medical requirements surrounding the disabled who apply for permanent residency. Hopefully we will see some reforms announced on this issue in the near future. For those wanting to learn more about this new Pacific Island visa process, I've left a link to the fact sheet in the description of this video. Well, that's all for another busy week. I'm still trying to shake off this flu, which seems to be dragging on, so I apologize for sounding a little croaky. Remember, if you need help, we are always here, and our office does not close for holidays, except for the public ones, of course. Book a time by visiting our website or just pick up the dog and bone and speak to two delightful people, Pat and Hay, to arrange a time. And a big thank you to Abir, who called our office from overseas to tell us he got his PR granted, and our YouTube channel helped him achieve his dreams. Sorry I did not get to talk to you, Abir, and enjoy your new life in Australia. As always, take care out there, and I will see you next time, so bye for now.